The night my wife walked away, she looked me straight in the eyes and said, "You'll never be more than a poor janitor." Asterisk asterisk. Then she grabbed her suitcase, walked out the front door, and slammed it so hard the picture frame above the hallway shook. 5 years later, she walked into my company's headquarters. Not as my wife. Not as a guest. As a job applicant. She had no idea I was the one making the final decision. But that part of the story can wait. If you had met me back then, you probably would have agreed with her. I drove a 12-year-old pickup that rattled every time it went over 45. My work boots were older than some of the kids at Lincoln Ridge High School. And every night, while most people were eating dinner with their families or watching football on the couch, I was pushing a mop through empty hallways that smelled like floor wax and dry erase markers. People like to joke that janitors know every secret in a building. They are right. You'd be surprised what people say when they think the cleaning guy isn't listening. Teachers arguing about quitting. Students crying in the bathroom after getting dumped. Parents whispering about money during parent-teacher conferences. I heard all of it. I just never repeated any of it. That's the thing about being invisible. People stop watching what they say. I clocked in every evening at 6. Same routine. Punch the time clock. Fill the mop bucket. Check the maintenance log. Replace burned-out light bulbs. Empty trash cans. Wipe fingerprints off classroom windows. Nothing glamorous. But it was honest work. My dad used to tell me something when I was a kid. Asterisk, a man isn't measured by the dirt on his hands. He's measured by how he earns what's in his wallet. Asterisk, he spent 32 years fixing diesel engines. His hands always smelled like motor oil. My mom used to complain that she'd never get the grease out of his shirts. He'd laugh and tell her, "That's what pays for the washing machine." I believed that. Maybe that's why I never felt embarrassed wearing a janitor's uniform. Sarah did enough of that for both of us. It hadn't always been that way. When we met, she didn't care what I did. We were 24, broke. Sharing a tiny apartment over a pizza shop. Our dining table was an old folding table someone left on the curb. Our couch came from a thrift store. We couldn't afford a bed frame, so our mattress sat on the floor for almost a year. And honestly, those were some of the happiest years of my life. Every Friday night we'd split one large pepperoni pizza because it was cheaper than ordering 2 small ones. We'd watch old movies we'd rented from the library. Sometimes the power went out during storms and we'd light candles just to pretend it was romantic instead of admitting we were worried about the electric bill. Back then, Sarah used to tell me, "As long as we're together, we'll figure everything out." I believed her. Looking back now, I don't think she lied. I think life slowly changed what she wanted. It started with little things. She'd compare our house to her coworkers. She'd mention vacations we couldn't afford. She stopped inviting friends over. Then she started apologizing whenever someone asked what I did for a living. Not to me, to them. Like my job needed an explanation. The first time I noticed it, I told myself I was imagining things. The second time I stayed quiet. By the 10th time, silence had become a habit. My shift ended a little after 10 that night. I locked the maintenance office, grabbed my lunchbox and walked out into the parking lot. The air had that early October chill that sneaks through your jacket no matter how hard you zip it. My truck coughed twice before finally starting. "Come on," I muttered, patting the dashboard. "You've got one more trip in you." The radio didn't work. The heater had 2 settings, too hot. Or not at all. I chose not at all. 20 minutes later, I pulled into our driveway. The porch light was on. So was the light in the kitchen. Sarah hated wasting electricity. If every light in the house was on, something was wrong. I shut off the engine. For a second, I just sat there with both hands on the steering wheel. The house looked exactly the same. Same white fence. Same maple tree we'd planted our first spring there. Same porch swing I'd built one weekend because Sarah said she wanted somewhere to drink coffee in the mornings. Funny how a place can look exactly the same, right before your whole life falls apart. I grabbed my keys, walked to the front door, and reached for the handle. Before I could turn it, I heard voices inside. Sarah's. And a man's. I froze. Then I heard her laugh. It wasn't a laugh I'd heard in a very long time. It made me think about how we got here. People don't wake up one morning ashamed of the person they married. It happens a little at a time. One awkward conversation. One forced smile. One introduction where they hesitate before saying what you do for a living. By the time you notice it, it's already become normal. For us, it started with dinners. Sarah used to invite people over all the time. Back when we were younger, our tiny apartment was always full. Paper plates. Cheap pizza. Store-brand soda. Nobody cared. Nobody had much money anyway. Years later, things looked different. Her coworkers had bigger houses, new subs. Vacation photos on Facebook every other week. Meanwhile, I was still driving the same pickup I'd owned for over a decade. It wasn't pretty. The driver's window only rolled down if you pulled it with one hand while pushing the button with the other. The air conditioner had retired years before I planned to. But it got me to work. Every single day. That Friday, Sarah told me she wanted to have a few people over. Just keep it casual, she said while setting the table. Nothing fancy. I smiled. Good. Fancy isn't exactly in our budget. She didn't smile back. Around 7, the doorbell rang. First came Lisa from her office. Then her husband. A few minutes later, Mark showed up carrying a bottle of wine that probably cost more than my work boots. Hey Mike, he said, shaking my hand. Good to finally see where Sarah disappears every evening. I left. Mostly right here. Dinner started well enough. People talked about work. Interest rates. The housing market. Vacation plans. I didn't have much to add. Not because I wasn't interested. Because I honestly didn't know much about any of it. My world was different. Broken lockers. Leaky pipes. Burned out light bulbs. Trying to figure out why the boiler made a noise that sounded like a dying lawn mower. That was my expertise. At one point, Lisa looked at me. So Michael, what do you do? Before I could answer, Sarah spoke. He's a janitor at Lincoln Ridge. She said it fast. Almost like she wanted to get it over with. Lisa nodded politely. Oh. That was it, just oh. Then she turned back to Sarah. So anyway, about that promotion. The conversation moved on without me. I took another bite of mashed potatoes. They tasted fine. I just couldn't remember chewing them. A little later, Mark asked me about the school. So what's it like working nights? It's quiet. I shrugged. You'd be surprised how much work there is after everyone leaves. He nodded. I bet. Before I could finish, Sarah laughed. You should see him when he gets home. She looked around the table. He smells like floor cleaner half the time. A couple of people chuckled. Not because it was funny. Because they didn't know what else to do. I smiled too. That's what people do when they don't want everyone else to feel uncomfortable. Mark tried changing the subject. Work is work. I respect anybody willing to earn an honest paycheck. I know, Sarah replied. I'm just saying. She paused for a second. I never imagined this would be my life. Nobody spoke. Even the room felt quieter. She looked at me. I thought we'd be further along by now. I set my fork down. So did I. Her eyes narrowed. But you stopped trying. That one landed. Because it wasn't true. I worked 6 nights a week. Picked up extra shifts during football season. Fixed things that weren't even on my job description because hiring contractors cost the school money. I tried. Just not in the way she wanted. After dinner, everyone moved into the living room. I stayed behind to clear the table. Mark walked into the kitchen a minute later. He picked up a stack of plates. "You don't have to do that," I said. "It's fine." He looked toward the living room to make sure nobody could hear. "For what it's worth, I think she's under a lot of pressure." I rinsed another plate, "Maybe. I don't think she means to hurt you." I looked down at the sink. "Doesn't really matter if she means it." He didn't answer. Because there wasn't much to say. After everyone left, the house felt bigger, quieter. Sarah was wiping down the counter. "You barely talked tonight." There wasn't much to say. There never is. I leaned against the sink. "Did you really have to introduce me like that?" "Like what?" "He's a janitor." "You are." "I know what I am." She folded the dish towel. "So what's the problem?" "The way you said it." She let out a tired sigh. "Michael. You act like I'm insulting you." "Aren't you?" "No." She looked me straight in the eye. "I'm embarrassed." There it was, no jokes. No pretending. Just the truth. I waited for her to take it back. She didn't. Instead, she grabbed her purse. "I'm meeting Lisa for coffee tomorrow. You can figure out breakfast." The front door closed behind her. I stood there listening to her car pull away. Then I looked around the kitchen. Same cabinets. Same table. Same refrigerator covered in magnets from places we'd driven to because flying cost too much. This house held every memory we'd built together. Somehow, she couldn't see any of them anymore. I finished washing the dishes. Turned off the kitchen light. Locked the back door. Then I checked my phone before heading upstairs. One missed call. A known number. No voicemail. I almost ignored it. Then the phone started ringing again. The first time I saw the messages. I told myself there had to be an explanation. There usually is. At least that's what people tell themselves when they're trying not to see what's right in front of them. The unknown number that called me the night before never left a voicemail. By the next morning, I'd almost forgotten about it. My shift had ended around 10. I grabbed breakfast from a gas station. Black coffee. Egg sandwich. The usual. When I pulled into the driveway, Sarah's car was gone. She texted me earlier. *** meeting Lisa. Back this afternoon. *** nothing unusual. I kicked off my boots and headed upstairs. Our bedroom looked exactly like it always did. The bed was made. The curtains were open. Sunlight filled the room. I dropped my wallet on the dresser. That's when I heard it. A vibration, buzz, buzz. Not my phone. Sarah had forgotten hers. It was sitting on her nightstand. The screen lit up. I wasn't trying to snoop. Honestly, I was just going to carry it downstairs in case she came back looking for it. Then another message popped up. *** Ethan had a great time last night. Can't stop thinking about you. *** I froze. The phone kept vibrating. Another text. *** miss you already. Red *** I stared at the screen. Maybe Ethan was a client. Maybe I was missing something. Maybe no. Nobody sends heart emojis to a client before 9 in the morning. I should have put the phone down. I know that. But I didn't. The passcode wasn't locked. Sarah had always trusted me. Or maybe she never imagined I'd have a reason to look. I opened the conversation. There weren't hundreds of messages. Just enough. Dinner plans. Inside jokes. Pictures of restaurants. One selfie of the two of them smiling at a rooftop bar. Another message stopped me cold. Sarah, I wish I didn't have to go home tonight. A few seconds later. Ethan, one day you won't have to. I read those two lines 3 times. Not because I didn't understand them. Because I wanted them to mean something else. They didn't. I locked the phone and set it exactly where I'd found it. Then I walked downstairs. I made another cup of coffee. It tasted like nothing. I sat at the kitchen table. The clock on the microwave read 10:17. Then 10:29. Then 10:46. Time kept moving, I didn't. Around noon, Sarah came home carrying 2 shopping bags. She smiled when she walked in. You're still up. Couldn't sleep. She set the bags on the counter. Long night, yeah. I watched her unpack groceries like nothing had happened. Fresh fruit. Coffee beans. A new candle. Normal things. That's what bothered me. Life looked normal. I finally asked. Who's Ethan? She stopped. Just for a second. Then she kept putting groceries away. A client. What kind of client texts you heart emojis? She slowly turned around. You looked through my phone. I saw the message. You had no right. I asked who Ethan is. She crossed her arms. He's someone from work. That's not what I asked. Silence. I waited. She looked past me. Toward the window. Finally. She exhaled. We've been seeing each other. No apology. No denial. Just 6 words. I nodded once. For how long? A few months. A few. I left. Not because anything was funny. Because my brain couldn't think of anything else to do. A few months. She looked tired. I didn't plan this. Nobody ever does. She rubbed her forehead. It just happened, no. I shook my head. It happened the first time. After that. You made choices. She didn't argue. Because she knew I was right. I stood up and walked to the sink. Outside, a lawn mower buzzed somewhere down the street. A dog barked. The world kept going. Funny how nothing outside changes. Even when your own house doesn't feel like home anymore. Who is he? I asked quietly. Ethan Brooks. The realtor. She nodded. I knew the name. Everybody did. Billboards. Bus stop ads. His face was all over town. Perfect smile. Perfect suit. Perfect hair. The kind of guy who looked like he'd never changed his own tire. He makes me feel. She stopped herself. I turned around. Finish it. She looked down. He makes me feel like my life can be bigger. There it was. It wasn't about him. Not really. It was about the life she thought came with him. I looked at my hands. The skin around my knuckles was cracked from years of cleaning chemicals. There was paint under one fingernail from fixing lockers earlier that week. Hands that had repaired our deck. Built our porch swing. Worked every overtime shift I could get. She wasn't looking at those things anymore. She only saw the paycheck. I never wanted to hurt you, she said. I smiled. You already did. Neither of us spoke for a long time. Finally, she picked up her purse. I need some air. She walked toward the door. I didn't stop her. I didn't ask where she was going. Because I already knew. A few minutes later, I looked through the living room window. Her car backed out of the driveway. Instead of turning left toward downtown, she turned right. Toward the new luxury condos on the other side of town. I stood there until her car disappeared. Then I walked back to the kitchen. On the counter sat the grocery receipt she'd forgotten. Tucked underneath it. A business card. Ethan Brooks. Premier Realty Group. Helping you find the life you deserve. Asterisk. I stared at that slogan for a long time. Then I flipped the card over. Sarah had written an address on the back. I recognized the street immediately. Luxury Condos, Unit 814. I slipped the card into my wallet. That evening, I got back into my old pickup, started the engine, and drove toward Unit 814. There are conversations you remember word for word. Not because they were long. Because they changed everything. The morning after I found Ethan's business card, Sarah asked if we could talk. Those 4 words usually mean one thing. Nothing good ever starts with, "Can we talk?" She was already sitting at the kitchen table when I came downstairs. 2 mugs of coffee. Neither of us touched them. She looked tired. Not from crying, just tired. "I've been thinking," she said. I pulled out the chair across from her. "I figured." She nodded once. Then she looked down at the table. "I don't think we should keep doing this." I already knew what this meant still. I made her say it. "Doing what?" "Our marriage." The room went quiet. The refrigerator hummed in the background. Somewhere outside, a garbage truck stopped at the neighbor's house. Life kept moving. Ours didn't. "Is this because of Ethan?" I asked. She didn't answer right away. "I've been unhappy for a long time." That wasn't my question, no. She took a slow breath. "It's because I finally admitted it to myself." I leaned back in my chair. "So when did you decide?" "The night I met him. The night you kissed him. The night you told him you wished you didn't have to come home." She closed her eyes. "You read everything." "I read enough." For the first time since we'd started talking. She looked uncomfortable. Not guilty. Just uncomfortable. "I don't want to fight," she said. "I don't either. But we're not talking about dirty dishes or unpaid bills. We're talking about 15 years. She folded her hands together. "I've already called a lawyer." That one caught me off guard. Not because she wanted a divorce. Because she'd already planned it. Without saying a word to me. "How long?" "A week." "A week." She nodded. I wanted to make sure. I let out a short laugh. "So while I was working nights, you were planning your exit." Her eyes stayed on the table. I didn't know how else to do it. I stood up and walked to the window. The maple tree in the front yard had started losing its leaves. We planted that tree the first spring after we bought the house. It barely reached my waist back then. Now it was taller than the roof. Funny how trees keep growing. Even when people stop growing together. "I'll move out," I said. "You don't have to." "No." She hesitated. "The house will probably have to be sold." Of course. There was still a mortgage. Neither of us could afford it alone. I turned back toward her. "Is that what your lawyer said?" She nodded. "We split the equity." Everything sounded so simple when lawyers explained it. Sell the house. Divide the money. Sign the papers. As if 15 years could fit inside a few legal documents. "I never wanted to hurt you," she said quietly. I looked at her. "Then why does it feel like you practiced saying that?" She didn't answer. A few minutes later, there was a knock at the door. Sarah stood up. "I'll get it." I stayed where I was. Then I heard a familiar voice. "Morning, Ethan." He wasn't supposed to be here. Sarah stepped outside and pulled the front door almost closed, almost. Not all the way. I couldn't hear every word. Just pieces. "Meeting a lawyer's, you okay?" Then she laughed. Not a big laugh. Just enough. The same laugh I'd heard through the front door a few nights earlier. I walked over before I could stop myself. "Open the door." Ethan looked surprised. He recovered fast. "Michael." He stuck out his hand. "I'm Ethan. I know who you are." His hand slowly dropped back to his side. There was an awkward silence. Finally he spoke. I'm sorry things turned out this way. I stared at him. You know what the funny part is? He didn't answer. You sound like you're apologizing because your flight got delayed. Sarah stepped between us. Michael's no. I shook my head. You don't get to protect him. Ethan took one step back. I'm leaving. Good idea. He walked to his SUV without another word. Brand new, spotless. Probably worth more than my truck. Sarah watched him drive away. Then she turned to me. You didn't have to do that. I didn't. He already did. She rubbed her forehead. This is exactly why we can't keep doing this. I looked at her for a long second. Then I asked the only question that still mattered. Did you ever love me? She didn't answer right away. I did. The past tense. That was all I needed to hear. 3 weeks later, we sat in a lawyer's office and signed papers that ended 15 years together. Nobody yelled. Nobody cried. We just signed our names, passed the papers across the table, and stood up. As we walked toward the parking lot, Sarah stopped beside her car. I really hope you find someone. I almost smiled. I already had someone. She looked away. Then she got into her car and drove off. I stood there until I couldn't see her anymore. When I finally climbed into my truck, my phone buzzed. It was a message from the bank. ***, your mortgage account has been closed. ***, a second message came in less than a minute later. ***, remaining balance will be mailed after the property sale. I looked through the windshield at the courthouse. For the first time in 15 years. I had nowhere to go home to. People think divorce is one bad day. It isn't. The papers take one afternoon. Starting over takes a lot longer. A week after we sold the house, I rented a 1-bedroom apartment across town. Calling it an apartment was generous. It was above an old laundromat. The floors creaked every time I took a step. The refrigerator buzzed louder than the TV. If my upstairs neighbor sneezed, I'd probably say, "Bless you." Still, it was mine. Or at least it was the only place I could afford. Moving didn't take long. 1 pickup truck. A mattress. A folding table. 2 kitchen chairs. A coffee maker. And a handful of boxes. 15 years of marriage. Fit in the back of a 12-year-old truck. That was harder to look at than I expected. I set the last box on the floor and looked around. No pictures. No family photos. No porch swing waiting outside. Just white walls and an empty room. I plugged in the coffee maker. It was the first thing I unpacked. Some habits survive almost anything. The next morning, I drove past our old house by accident. Or maybe it wasn't an accident. I still took the same road to work. There was a moving truck in the driveway. A young couple stood on the front porch. They were smiling. The man carried a little girl on his shoulders while her mom unlocked the front door. The maple tree we'd planted was still there. So was the porch swing. I built that swing over one long Saturday. Sarah had wanted a place to drink coffee before work. Now someone else would. The light turned green behind me. The driver honked. I kept going. That night I clocked in at Lincoln Ridge High like always. 6 o'clock. Same time. Same routine. Fill the mop bucket. Check the maintenance log. Replace 3 broken ceiling lights in the science building. Clean the cafeteria. Nothing about my job had changed. My life had. Around 8, Coach Ramirez stopped me in the hallway. Mike. Hey, Coach. He looked at me for a second. You doing okay? People ask that question when they already know the answer. I'm getting there. He nodded. If you need anything. I appreciate it. He patted my shoulder and walked away. No speeches. No advice. Sometimes that's enough. Later that night, I found one of the sophomore lockers jammed shut. The kid probably thought someone had vandalized it. Turned out, a pencil had slipped into the latch. 10 minutes later, it opened like nothing had happened. Funny how small problems can look impossible until someone knows where to push. Around 10, I took my break outside. The football field lights were off. The bleachers were empty. The whole campus was quiet. I sat on a bench with a vending machine coffee that tasted like warm cardboard. My phone buzzed. My sister Emily. "You eating?" I had a sandwich. A real sandwich. Mostly. She laughed. "You sound terrible. I've sounded like this for years. You coming to Mom's on Sunday?" "I don't know." "You should. Everybody's worried." I looked across the empty football field. "They don't need to be. They're family." "I know." She was quiet for a second. "You're still going to work every night." "I've got bills. You could stay with me. I'll be okay." She didn't argue. She knew I was too stubborn. "I love you." "Love you too." After we hung up, I sat there another minute before heading back inside. Near the main office, I noticed a classroom light still on. Probably a teacher working late. It happened all the time. I knocked gently. "You still alive in there?" An older man looked up from a stack of papers. "Mr. Harold Bennett. History teacher." He'd been at Lincoln Ridge longer than anybody. White hair. Wire-rimmed glasses. Always wore a tie. Even on Fridays. He smiled barely. "You heading home?" "In a minute." I reached for the light switch. "I'll leave you to it." "Hold on, Mike." I turned back. He pointed at the chair across from his desk. "Sit down for a second." I checked my watch. "I've still got 2 hallways left. They'll survive another 5 minutes." I sat. He folded his reading glasses and set them on the desk. "I heard about your divorce. News travels fast in a school." "Yeah. I'm sorry." "Me too." He studied me for a moment. Then he asked something nobody else had. "What are you planning to do next?" I frowned. "What do you mean?" "You've been here what? 14 years. Almost 15. And do you plan on retiring with a mop in your hand?" I shrugged. "I've never really thought about it." "I have." That caught my attention. He leaned back in his chair. "You know what I see every night." I smiled. "A guy making a mess in room 204. He laughed. "Besides that, I see someone who fixes everything. You repair doors. You fix plumbing. You handle electrical work. You solve problems before anyone even notices they're there. Most people can't do half of that. It's just part of the job." "No." He shook his head. "It's a skill." I didn't know what to say. Nobody had ever described my work like that before. "Not even me, Mr. Bennett opened the bottom drawer of his desk. He pulled out a folded brochure and slid it across to me. I looked down. *** Facilities Management Certification Program. *** Night and weekend classes. State Technical College. I looked back at him. "I can't afford college." He smiled. "Who said anything about paying full price?" I frowned. "What do you mean?" He tapped the brochure. "I think I know someone you should meet." Before I could ask another question, the school intercom crackled to life. "Maintenance to the gymnasium." I folded the brochure and slipped it into my back pocket. Then I grabbed my mop bucket and headed toward the gym. For the first time in months, I wasn't thinking about what I'd lost. I was thinking about why an old history teacher believed I could become something more than a janitor. It's funny how one conversation can stick with you. Not because it changes your life overnight. Because it gives you something you haven't had in a long time. A reason to look ahead. The brochure, Mr. Bennett handed me stayed in my truck for 3 days. Every morning, I'd see it sitting on the passenger seat. Every morning, I'd tell myself the same thing. College wasn't for people like me. I was 39. I worked nights. My knees popped every time I climbed a ladder. Most of the students in that program were probably half my age. By the 4th day, I was tired of making excuses. I called the number on the brochure during my lunch break. A woman answered on the second ring. State Technical College. This is Karen, hi. I looked at the brochure again. My name's Michael Carter. I'm calling about the facilities management program. She spent 10 minutes explaining the classes. Building systems, HVAC. Electrical safety. Budget planning. Vendor management. Leadership. It sounded less like school. And more like everything I'd already been doing. Just with better job titles. Before we hung up, she asked one question. When would you like to start? I hesitated. I guess. Next semester. Why wait? That caught me off guard. I work nights. So do a lot of our students. I haven't been in a classroom since my 20s. You won't be the oldest. I smiled. You say that to everyone. Only the ones who sound nervous. For the first time in weeks. I laughed. A real one. That Saturday I met Mr. Bennett at a small diner near the school. He was already there, coffee, toast. Reading the newspaper. He folded it when I walked in, so. I called. I figured you would, how? You don't strike me as someone who enjoys wondering what if. The waitress poured coffee into my mug, Mr. Bennett waited until she walked away. There's something I didn't tell you. I leaned forward. The college has a scholarship fund. I blinked. For veterans, no. For working adults. I still can't afford it. You might not have to. He reached into his folder and handed me another sheet of paper. Recommendation form. Already signed by him. You already filled this out. I've watched you for almost 15 years. He took a sip of coffee. I've never seen you leave a job unfinished. You show up. You solve problems. You don't complain. Those things matter. I looked at the paper for a long moment. Nobody had ever recommended me for anything before. Not a promotion. Not an awards, nothing. It felt strange seeing someone else believe in me. Monday afternoon, I walked into the college admissions office. The lobby smelled like fresh paint and new carpet. Students hurried past carrying backpacks and laptops. I suddenly felt about 100 years old. A young guy held the door open for me. Go ahead, sir. That one hurt a little. Karen recognized me immediately. You made it. I almost turned around twice. She laughed. Most people do. She helped me fill out the paperwork. Employment history. Education. Financial information. When we finished, she looked over everything. You qualify. For what? The scholarship. I frowned. How much? She smiled. Almost all of it. I honestly thought she'd made a mistake. There has to be a catch. There isn't. You still have to work hard. That's about it. I walked back to my truck carrying a folder full of paperwork. I sat behind the steering wheel without starting the engine. It had been a long time since I'd gotten good news. I almost didn't know what to do with it. That evening, I started my shift at Lincoln Ridge. Same hallways, same mop. Same old truck in the parking lot. Nothing looked different. But somehow, everything felt different. Around 9 o'clock, Mr. Bennett found me replacing ceiling tiles outside the library. Well, I got in. He smiled like he'd known the answer already. I also got the scholarship. I know. I stopped working. You knew. He nodded. I may have made a phone call. I stared at him. You didn't have to do that, no. He smiled. I wanted to. I shook my head. I don't know how to thank you. He looked around the empty hallway. Do me one favor. What's that? When you get where you're going, look behind you. There'll be somebody standing where you are today. Help them. That was it. No long speech. No lecture. Just one sentence. One promise. Near the end of my shift, I unlocked the maintenance office to grab a new box of light bulbs. On top of my toolbox sat a framed picture. Someone had left it there. It was an old staff photo from years ago. The maintenance crew. There were 6 of us back then. Only 2 were still working at the school. The others had retired. Moved away. Or passed on. I looked younger in that picture. Less gray. Less tired. I wondered what that version of me would think if he could see me now, divorced. Living alone. Starting college at 39. He'd probably think I was crazy. Maybe I was. But for the first time since Sarah walked away, being crazy didn't seem like the worst idea. I locked the office and headed toward the parking lot just after 10. As I climbed into my truck, my phone buzzed. It was an email from the college. ***, welcome to the Facilities Management Certification Program. ***, classes begin Monday. Then another email came in. ***, required materials attached. I opened the list. There were 12 books. 3 online courses. Weekly exams. Group projects. I leaned back in my seat and laughed. Well, Mike. I looked at the stack of cleaning supplies in the passenger seat. Guess you're about to have 2 full-time jobs. I forgot how exhausting school could be. Not because the classes were hard. Because life didn't stop while I was taking them. My schedule looked ridiculous. Class started at 8 every morning. It ended a little after 1. I'd grab lunch on the way home. Sleep for 3 or 4 hours if I was lucky. Then head to Lincoln Ridge by 6. Clock out after 10. Study until midnight, wake up. Do it all again. Monday lasted forever. By Wednesday, I couldn't remember what day it was. The first class was building systems. I walked into the room carrying a notebook that still had a company logo from 10 years ago. Most of the students were younger than me, 20. 22. Maybe 25. A couple of them looked like they had graduated high school last week. I almost turned around. Then a guy in a baseball cap looked up and smiled. You here for facilities? Yeah. He pointed to the empty seat beside him. Good. I was hoping someone older than me would show up. I laughed. How old are you? 33. I've got 6 years on you. He grinned. Perfect. My wife already calls me the old guy. His name was Daniel. Former Army. Worked maintenance at a hospital, 2 kids. He wasn't chasing a promotion. He was chasing better hours. I'd like to see my daughters before bedtime once in a while, he said. I understood that. The instructor, Miss Alvarez, walked in carrying a stack of blue binders. She looked around the room. Quick question. How many of you already work in maintenance? Almost every hand went up. Including mine. She nodded. Good. You already know how to fix problems. My job is teaching you how to manage them. That sentence stayed with me. I had spent years solving one broken thing at a time. She wanted us to think about the whole building, budgets, planning, safety inspections, contractors, preventive maintenance. Things I'd never really considered. During lunch, Daniel looked over at me. So where do you work? Lincoln Ridge High. No kidding. I went there. What year? He named the year. I smiled. I was probably unclogging the cafeteria sink while you were skipping algebra. He laughed so hard people turned around. Fair enough. For the first time in months, I didn't feel like the oldest guy in the room. I just felt like another student. By the end of the week, reality hit: homework, quizzes, reading assignments. One instructor expected us to submit a maintenance budget by Friday. I'd never made a budget in my life. I repaired things. Somebody else worried about the numbers. That Thursday night, I sat alone in the maintenance office during my break. The budget worksheet was spread across the desk. None of it made sense. Projected costs, capital improvements, labor allocation. I rubbed my eyes. What am I doing, mister? Bennett walked in carrying his usual coffee. Talking to yourself. I think I'm failing. He looked at the worksheet. No. You've just reached the part where learning gets uncomfortable. I haven't touched math like this in years. He pulled up a chair. Tell me. If the boiler breaks tomorrow, what do? I call the supplier. Estimate the repair. Figure out what's cheaper. Fix it or replace it. He nodded. So, you're already making budget decisions. You just don't call them that. I stared at the paper again. He was right. The words were different. The work wasn't. That weekend, I spent almost 12 hours finishing my first assignment. When I finally hit submit, I expected the worst. Monday afternoon, Miss Alvarez handed back our grades. She stopped beside my desk. Mr. Carter. Nice work. A big red **A** was written across the front page. I looked at it twice. Then 3 times. I honestly thought she'd handed me someone else's paper. Daniel leaned over. What'd you get? I turned the page toward him. Look at you. He laughed. The old guy's showing us up. I shook my head. Beginner's luck. It wasn't luck, miss. Alvarez said from across the room. You've spent years solving real problems. Now you're learning the language companies use to describe them. Nobody had ever explained my experience that way before. That night, I walked into Lincoln Ridge feeling lighter than I had in a long time. I started replacing broken exit signs in the east hallway. About halfway through, Principal Harris stopped beside my ladder. You've been taking classes. Word traveled fast in schools. Trying to. He looked up at the new light fixture. I've noticed. Your maintenance reports have gotten a lot more detailed. I smiled. I guess I'm practicing. Keep it up. Then he walked away. It wasn't much. Just a few words. But they mattered. Because somebody had noticed. Around 10 o'clock, I finished mopping the main hallway. The floor reflected the ceiling lights like glass. I stood there for a second, looking at the empty school. For years, I'd seen this place as the end of my road. Now, it felt like the beginning of one. As I locked the maintenance office, my phone buzzed. It was an email from a company I'd never heard of. Horizon Facility Services subject. Facilities Management Internship Opportunity I frowned. I'd never applied there. The email was short. Mr. Carter, we received your name through a professional recommendation and would like to speak with you about a paid trainee position. If you're interested, please contact us this week. Professional recommendation. I immediately thought of Mr. Bennett. But he never said a word about recommending me anywhere else. I looked at the company logo again. Then I looked up at the empty hallway. Someone was opening a door I didn't even know existed. People kept telling me the same thing. Don't burn yourself out. I smiled every time. Then I went home, set my alarm, and did it all again the next day. My life ran on a schedule that would have made most people quit. Class from 8 to 1. Grab lunch on the drive home. Sleep until 5 if I was lucky. Clock in at Lincoln Ridge by 6. Work until after 10. Study until midnight, repeat. By the second week, I started forgetting little things. I'd walk into the kitchen and forget why. I'd drive to the gas station and realize my wallet was still sitting on the coffee table. One morning, I poured cereal into the refrigerator. That was when I admitted I was tired. Really tired still. Quitting never crossed my mind, not once. Because every time I thought about giving up, I heard Sarah's voice. Asterisk, you'll never be more than a poor janitor. Asterisk, I wasn't trying to prove her wrong anymore. I was trying to prove something to myself. My favorite class turned out to be HVAC systems. Not because it was easy. Because it reminded me of work. The instructor rolled an old thermostat onto the table. Anybody know why this unit keeps failing? A few students guessed. Bad wiring. Faulty compressor. Broken fan motor. The instructor shook his head every time. I raised my hand. Dirty filter. He smiled. Why? If the airflow's blocked, the whole system works harder. He nodded. Exactly. The class turned toward me. How'd you know that? One student asked. I shrugged. I've changed enough filters to fill a warehouse. Everybody laughed. For the first time, being the oldest guy in the room felt like an advantage. Not a weakness. A few days later, Daniel caught up with me after class. You heading home? Work. You work every night. 6 days a week. He stared at me. When do you sleep? I'll let you know if I ever find out. He laughed. Then his expression changed. Can I ask you something? Sure. Why are you doing all this? I knew what he was asking. Most people my age weren't going back to school. They were trying to survive until retirement. I looked out at the parking lot. I spent 15 years thinking my life was set. I don't want the next 15 to look the same. He nodded slowly. Fair enough. Money was still tight. Actually, tight was putting it nicely. After rent, groceries, gas, and tuition fees that weren't covered by the scholarship, there wasn't much left. One Friday night, my truck refused to start. I turned the key, nothing. Tried again. Still nothing. I rested my forehead against the steering wheel. Come on. I really don't have time for this. An older mechanic from the shop next door walked over. You having a bad day? You could say that. He connected a portable battery pack. The truck started immediately. Battery's dying, he said. Replace it soon. How much? He looked at me. Around $200. I thanked him. Then I drove away pretending I wasn't already doing the math in my head. $200. That was groceries for almost 2 weeks. The battery would have to wait. I just hoped the truck agreed. The following Monday, we had our first group project. I hated group projects. Some people worked. Some people disappeared until presentation day. Our team met in the library. There were 4 of us: Daniel, a woman named Ashley, a college kid named Trevor, and me. Trevor showed up 20 minutes late. I'm sorry, he said. I overslept. Ashley rolled her eyes. Daniel laughed. I remembered being his age. Actually, no, I didn't. At his age, I was working construction during the day and unloading trucks at night. Different lives. Different choices. Instead of arguing, I divided the project into smaller jobs. You handle safety inspections. I pointed to Ashley. Daniel, take maintenance scheduling. I looked at Trevor. You organize the presentation. What about you? Daniel asked. I'll put everything together. Nobody complained. By the end of the week, our project was finished before anyone else's. After class, Miss Alvarez stopped me. Mr. Carter, you've managed people before. I smiled. No. I've just worked with enough people to know what doesn't work. She laughed. Same thing. That night at Lincoln Ridge, I was replacing ceiling tiles when Principal Harris walked by. You've been different lately. I climbed down the ladder. Different how? You carry yourself differently. I didn't know what to say. He looked around the hallway. I've noticed something over the years. What's that? When something breaks around here, everybody calls you. I shrugged. That's my job, no. He smiled. That's because they trust you. He walked away before I could answer. I stood there holding a ceiling tile, trust. Nobody had used that word to describe me in a long time. Certainly not at home. Near the end of my shift, I checked the maintenance mailbox. There was a large envelope with my name written across the front. No return address. Inside was a business magazine. One page had been folded over. A single article was circled in blue ink. ***, Regional Building Services Company looking for new operations manager. ***, across the bottom of the page, someone had written 6 words. ***, you're more qualified than you think. ***, there wasn't a signature, no note. Nothing else. I looked around the empty maintenance office. Whoever left that magazine knew exactly where to find me. I almost threw the magazine away. Not because I wasn't interested. Because I assumed it wasn't meant for me. Operations manager. That sounded like a guy with a college degree. A nice suit. An office with a window. Not someone who spent most nights carrying a toolbox. The article stayed on my kitchen table for a week. Every morning, I'd read the job title. Every morning I'd come up with another reason not to apply, then Mr. Bennett caught me staring at it during lunch. You've been reading the same page for 3 days. I don't have the qualifications. He adjusted his glasses. Did they tell you that? No. Then who did? I didn't answer. Because I already knew. It was me. He slid the magazine closer. Read the requirements out loud. I did. 5 years of facilities experience. I left. I've got 15. Knowledge of building systems. I've been fixing them my whole career. Ability to manage vendors and maintenance schedules. I stopped. I already did those things. Just on a smaller scale, Mr. Bennett smiled. You're looking at the job title. I'm looking at what they're asking for. They're not the same thing. That night I opened my old laptop. It took almost 5 minutes to start. I updated my resume for the first time in years. Custodian. That didn't sound impressive. So I kept writing. Managed preventative maintenance for a campus serving over 1,000 students. Performed electrical, plumbing, HVAC and building repairs. Coordinated outside contractors. Maintained safety records. Reduced repair costs through preventative maintenance. I leaned back. None of those statements were lies. I just never thought about my work that way. For years, I'd introduced myself with one sentence. I'm a janitor. That resume reminded me I was a lot more than that. The interview was on a Tuesday afternoon. I borrowed a tie from my brother-in-law. It was a little too short. The knot looked crooked no matter how many times I fixed it. Good enough. The office belonged to Horizon Facility Services. Nothing fancy. Just a clean brick building with a small sign out front. I almost turned around in the parking lot. Then I remembered something my dad used to say. The answers always no if you never ask. So I walked in. The receptionist smiled. You must be Michael. I am. They'll be with you shortly. 5 minutes later, a woman opened the conference room door. I'm Karen Mitchell. Operations Director. She shook my hand. Thanks for coming. There were 2 other people in the room. A man from Human Resources. Another manager from Field Operations. Karen looked at my resume. You've worked at the same school for almost 15 years. Yes, ma'am. What kept you there? I thought about the safe answer. Then I decided to tell the truth. People counted on me. She nodded. Fair answer. The questions kept coming. What would you do if two buildings had emergency repairs at the same time? How do you deal with difficult contractors? Tell us about a mistake you've made. That last one surprised me. I once ignored a small roof leak. I smiled. I figured it could wait until summer. It couldn't. Karen raised an eyebrow. What happened? The gym ceiling collapsed during spring break. The HR manager looked up from his notes. You admitted that pretty quickly. It was my mistake. What did you learn? I didn't need time to think. Small problems get expensive when you ignore them. Nobody spoke for a second. Karen wrote something in her notebook. I had no idea whether that was good or bad. The interview ended after about 40 minutes. Karen walked me to the lobby. We still have several candidates to meet. I understand. You'll hear from us soon. I thanked her and headed for the parking lot. Halfway to my truck I laughed. I'd forgotten to ask one important question. What the job paid. Maybe that was a good sign. Maybe it wasn't. 3 days passed, nothing. 4 days. Still nothing. By Friday night, I figured they had found someone better. Someone younger. Someone with an actual management title. I went back to work, same mop. Same hallways. Same routine. Around 9 o'clock my phone buzzed. A known number. I almost ignored it. Instead I answered. Michael Carter. Hi Michael. This is Karen Mitchell from Horizon. I leaned against the wall. Hi. I'll keep this short. We'd like to offer you the position. For a second. I forgot how to talk. Karen laughed. You still there? Yeah. I looked down at my work boots. Still covered in dust from replacing ceiling tiles. I'm here. The position starts at $68,000 a year. My grip tightened on the phone. That was almost twice what I was making. We also offer health insurance, retirement matching, and paid training. I closed my eyes. Not because I was emotional. Because I was trying to make sure I heard the number correctly. Karen asked one last question, so, do you want the job? I looked down the empty hallway. The hallway I'd cleaned thousands of times. The hallway that had fed me. Protected me. Given me a paycheck when I needed one most. I do. We're excited to have you. After we hung up, I stayed exactly where I was, Mr. Bennett walked around the corner carrying his usual stack of papers. He looked at me. Good news. I smiled. I got it. He didn't ask how much it paid. He didn't ask about the title. He just stuck out his hand. I'm proud of you, Mike. I shook it. Couldn't have done it without you. He smiled. I only opened the door. You walked through it. My last shift at Lincoln Ridge was 2 weeks later. The maintenance crew surprised me with a cake in the break room. Coach Ramirez gave me a handshake that turned into a hug. Principal Harris handed me a small plaque. It read, ***, thank you for 15 years of quiet service. ***, quiet service. I like that. Because that's exactly what it had been. No headlines. No awards. Just showing up. Night after night. As I carried the plaque out to my truck, I took one last look at the school. 15 years. Gone in one walk across the parking lot. I climbed into the driver's seat. Started the engine. Then my phone buzzed. It was an email from Horizon. ***, orientation schedule attached. ***, I opened it. The first assignment on my calendar caught my eye. ***, visit Harper Commercial Properties. ***, the name sounded familiar. I couldn't remember why. Then it hit me. Harper Commercial Properties was one of Ethan Brooks' biggest real estate clients. The first time I walked into Harper Commercial Properties, I didn't know I was looking at my future. I was there for work. Nothing more. My new job at Horizon Facility Services came with a lot of things I wasn't used to. A company email, a badge, a desk. A business card with my name printed on it. Michael Carter, Operations Manager. I kept looking at that card like someone had made a mistake. For 15 years, I was the guy people called when a toilet leaked or a light went out. Now I was the guy people called before things broke. That was a different kind of responsibility. And honestly, it scared me. Harper Commercial Properties owned several office buildings around the city. Most of them were older. Beautiful from the outside. Expensive looking. But old buildings have a way of hiding problems. A fresh coat of paint can hide a lot. A clean lobby can hide a failing HVAC system. A nice front entrance can hide pipes that haven't been replaced in 20 years. My job was to find those problems before they became disasters. When I arrived at Harper's main office, I expected the usual. A quick meeting, a tour. Some paperwork. Instead, I found a mess. The building manager, Tom, met me near the entrance. "You must be Michael." "That's me." He shook my hand. "Sorry about the timing." "The timing?" He looked around. "You're here because the company wants to cut costs." That was not how I expected my first visit to go, meaning they're looking for cheaper maintenance options. I nodded, okay. He lowered his voice. "Between you and me, they're not in a great spot." During the inspection, I started noticing things. Small things. The kind most people ignore. A leaking valve in the basement. An air conditioning unit running longer than it should. Old wiring in a service room. Nothing looked serious. But together, they told a story. This building wasn't being maintained. It was being delayed. There's a difference. Maintenance keeps problems small. Delays make them expensive. I wrote everything down. Tom watched me. "You actually check all this?" I looked up. "Shouldn't I?" He laughed. "You'd be surprised." After the inspection, I met with the owner. His name was Robert Harper. He was in his 60s. The kind of businessman who looked tired even when he was sitting down. He glanced over my report. "You found a lot." "I found things that need attention." "How much?" I gave him the estimate. He stared at the number. "That's not small, no." He leaned back. "Do you know why we hired Horizon?" "Because you need maintenance." He shook his head. "Because the last company kept charging us for emergencies. Every month. Something broke. Every month." I looked back at the report. "Emergencies are expensive." "Exactly." He sighed. "Nobody wants to spend money fixing things that aren't broken yet." I understood that. People don't like paying for problems they can't see. A week later, I received an email from Robert Harper. He wanted another meeting. This time, not at his office, at a coffee shop. That was unusual. When I arrived, he was already sitting there, no suit. No assistant. Just coffee. "I've been thinking about your reports." "Okay." "I looked into your background." I raised an eyebrow. "My background? 15 years at Lincoln Ridge." "You know what stood out?" I waited. "You stayed." That wasn't the answer I expected. A lot of people leave jobs when they think they can do better. "But you stayed, why?" I thought about it. "Because someone had to take care of the place." Robert nodded. "That's exactly what we need." I frowned. "I'm not sure I understand." He looked out the window. "Harper Properties is struggling." There it was. The thing nobody wanted to say, how bad. Bad enough that we're considering selling. I stayed quiet. I built this company 30 years ago. Now I'm watching it fall apart because I ignored problems for too long. The word sounded familiar. Almost like something Mr. Bennett would say. Small problems. Big consequences. I can't buy your company. Robert smiled slightly. I didn't ask you to. Then why are we having this conversation? He reached into his briefcase. Pulled out a folder. Inside were financial documents. Maintenance records. Client lists. Everything. We're looking for someone who understands operations. Someone who can rebuild the company. I looked at the folder. Then back at him, why me? Because everyone else sees a struggling business. You saw a broken building. And you knew how to fix it. I didn't touch the folder. This is a big responsibility, yes. And if I fail? Robert looked directly at me. Then you learn why it failed. That's what business owners do. I took the folder home that night. I didn't open it immediately. I just sat at my kitchen table. The same table from my apartment. The same one where I'd eaten alone for months. I looked around. A year ago, I thought my life was over. Now someone was asking me if I wanted to rebuild a company. It sounded crazy. Almost impossible. But then again, so did going back to school at 39. So did leaving my old job. So did starting over after losing everything. The next morning, I opened the folder. The numbers were worse than I expected. Debt. Lost contracts. High operating costs. The company wasn't just struggling. It was drowning. I closed the folder. For a few seconds, I thought about saying no. Then I saw the last page. A list of employees. 37 names. 37 people who would lose their jobs if the company failed. I stared at that list. Because I knew what it felt like. To wonder if tomorrow's paycheck would come. To feel like your future was controlled by someone else. I picked up my phone. Called Robert. He answered immediately, Michael. I'll do it. Silence then. Are you sure? No, I wasn't. Not even close. But I had learned something. Sometimes waiting until you're ready means waiting forever. I'll do it. 3 days later. I signed the papers. I became the new owner of Harper Facility Services. The company that was almost bankrupt. The company nobody wanted. The company that could either become my biggest opportunity or my second biggest failure. And I had no idea yet that someone from my past was about to see my name on those papers. The hardest decisions in life usually don't look dramatic. There was no music playing. No one cheering. No sign telling me I was making the right choice. Just me. Sitting at a kitchen table with a stack of papers. Wondering if I was about to ruin everything again. Buying Harper Facility Services sounded crazy when I said it out loud. Actually, it sounded crazy even inside my own head. I had spent most of my life trying to be responsible. Pay the bills. Keep a steady job. Avoid unnecessary risks. Then, at 39 years old, after losing my marriage and my home, I decided to buy a failing company. Even I had to admit it sounded like something a person does right before making a terrible mistake. The first thing I did was look at the numbers again. Not the hopeful version. Not the version Robert Harper wanted me to see. The real version. The company had problems everywhere. 3 major clients had already left. Equipment needed replacement. Employees were frustrated. Bills were piling up. The previous management team had spent years putting out fires instead of preventing them. They weren't bad people. They were just tired. And tired people stop looking ahead. I understood that. I had been there. The day I officially took over, I walked into the Harper Facility Services office. It wasn't impressive. A small building. Old furniture. A reception desk that had seen better years. A coffee machine that sounded like it was fighting for its life. The receptionist looked up. "Can I help you?" I smiled. "I'm Michael Carter." She looked confused. "Okay. I'm the new owner." Her face changed. Not excitement, concern. That told me everything. People weren't waiting for a hero. They were waiting for another person to disappoint them. A few minutes later, I gathered everyone in the meeting room. 37 employees. Some looked curious. Some looked nervous. Some looked like they were already preparing for bad news. I understood why. Most people only meet the new owner when something is about to change. Usually. Not for the better. I stood in front of them. "I know what you're thinking." A few people looked up. "You've seen companies change owners before. You've probably heard promises before." Nobody said anything. So I'm not going to stand here and tell you everything will magically become perfect. Because it won't. That got their attention. We have problems. We have debt. We have clients we need to earn back. But we also have something important. I looked around the room. People who know how to do this work. The room stayed quiet. I'm not here to replace everyone. I'm here to find out what we can fix. After the meeting, a man named Carlos approached me. He was one of the senior technicians. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure." "Why buy this place?" I knew the question was coming. I just didn't know the answer. So I gave him the honest one. "Because I know what it's like when people stop believing you're valuable." He looked at me for a second. Then nodded. "I hope you're right." "So do I." The first month was rough. Really rough. I worked longer hours than I ever had before. Except now. I wasn't cleaning buildings. I was trying to save one. I visited every client. I listened. Most of them had the same complaints. Slow response times. Poor communication. Unexpected repair costs. Nobody trusted the company anymore. And trust is harder to repair than a broken machine. One client told me something I'll never forget. "Your company doesn't have a maintenance problem. You have a reputation problem." That sentence bothered me. Because he was right. I started making changes. Small ones first. Every technician got a better reporting system. Every client received updates before they had to ask. We created maintenance schedules instead of waiting for emergencies. Some employees loved the changes. Some hated them. Change always feels like criticism when people are used to doing things one way. One Friday evening, Carlos came into my office. "You know, some people think you're changing too much." I looked up from my computer. "Do you?" He thought about it. "No, why?" "Because before, we were always reacting. Now we're planning." I smiled. "That's the idea." 3 months passed. The company wasn't successful yet. But it was breathing. We stopped losing money every month. One old client came back. Then another. Not because of fancy advertising. Because someone finally answered their calls. Someone finally showed up when they said they would. Simple things. Things businesses forget. One night I stayed late in the office. Everyone else had gone home. I looked at the numbers on my computer. Still not great. Still a long way to go. But better. I poured myself a cup of coffee. The machine made a horrible noise. I left. "Even you need maintenance." My phone buzzed. A message from Robert Harper. ***, proud of what you're doing. Keep going. ***, I smiled. Then another notification appeared. An article from the local business journal. I almost ignored it. Then I saw the headline. Struggling facility company under new leadership after major acquisition. My name was in the article. For the first time, my name wasn't connected to being a janitor. I stared at the screen. Then my phone rang. A known number. I almost didn't answer. But something made me pick up. Hello. A woman's voice spoke, Michael. I froze. I knew that voice. It had been months since I'd heard it, Sarah. There was a pause. Then she said something I wasn't expecting. I saw the article. I looked at the computer screen. At my name. At the company logo. At everything I had built from nothing. What do you want? Another pause then. I think we need to talk. I looked out the office window. The city lights reflected on the glass. A year ago, she left me because she thought I would never become anything more than a janitor. Now. She was calling my company. But I didn't know why yet. I thought buying a company was the hard part. I was wrong. Signing the papers was easy. Keeping the company alive was the real fight. The first 6 months taught me something nobody tells you about success. Nobody sees the nights you spend wondering if you made the wrong choice. They only see the result. They don't see you sitting alone in an empty office at midnight, staring at numbers that don't make sense. They don't see you checking your bank account before paying another bill. They don't see the moment when you ask yourself, did I just destroy everything I worked for? I had those moments. More than once. 3 months after taking over Harper Facility Services, the progress started slowing down. The first improvements felt exciting. A few clients returned. Employees started trusting the changes. People stopped looking at me like I was just another owner passing through. Then reality showed up. The old problems were bigger than we thought. One of our biggest clients decided not to renew their contract. The reason? A competitor offered a cheaper price. When you're a small company trying to survive, losing one big client hurts. Losing 3 can break you. I sat in my office looking at the contract termination letter. The number on the page represented almost 20% of our monthly revenue. 20% gone. I read the letter again. Then I put it down. Carlos knocked on the door. You okay? I looked up, yeah. He looked at the paper on my desk. No, you're not. I smiled. You always this honest. Usually. He walked in. What do we do? That was the question. Not what do I do. What do we do? I like that. Because it meant he was starting to see the company as something we all owned. Not just me. We find out why they left. Carlos frowned. They already told us. They told us the price. But that's not always the real reason. The next week, I personally visited the clients who left. Some people told me it was a waste of time. They already made their decision. Maybe they had. But I learned something working maintenance. If a machine breaks, you don't just replace the broken part. You find out why it broke. The first client told me exactly what I expected. Your competitor was cheaper. The second one said the same thing. The third one didn't. His name was Richard. He managed a large office complex downtown. He invited me into his office. I'll be honest with you, Michael. I expected you to send a sales guy. I smiled. I'm not really a sales guy. I noticed. He looked at my notes. You actually came here to listen. That's the idea. He leaned back. The price wasn't the problem. I waited. Your company got too comfortable. That one hurt. But I needed to hear it, explain. Your technicians fixed problems. But nobody helped us prevent them. I nodded slowly. That's fair. Your old company was a repair service. You need to become a partner. That sentence stayed with me. A repair service. A partner. There was a difference. I went back to the office and called a meeting. Everyone gathered around the same table. The same table where I had promised things would improve months earlier. I need to change something. People looked nervous. We've been focusing on fixing problems after they happen. I looked at Carlos. We need to help clients before problems happen. A technician raised his hand, meaning preventive maintenance plans, regular inspections, reports, long-term solutions. One employee frowned. That's more work, yes. Nobody spoke. But it's also more valuable. I wasn't asking them to work harder for nothing. I was asking them to think differently. The next few weeks were exhausting. We rebuilt everything. New inspection templates. New client reports. New training. Some employees struggled. Some adapted quickly. Carlos became the person I relied on most. One night, we were reviewing a building inspection when he looked at me. You know what's funny, what? A year ago you were cleaning schools. Now you're running a company. I laughed. Don't remind me. No, seriously. He pointed at the report. Most people would have quit after what happened to you. I looked down maybe. But quitting would have meant Sarah was right. And I couldn't accept that. Not anymore. Then came the phone call. Friday morning, 7:30. I was already at the office. My phone rang. It was our accountant, Michael. Something about his voice told me this wasn't good. What happened? We need to talk. How bad? A pause. We're going to have a cash flow problem. I stood up. How big? Big enough that if we don't get new contracts soon. He didn't finish. He didn't have to. I understood. The company wasn't dying slowly. It was running out of time. I walked to the window. Outside, people were starting their day. Cars moving. Coffee shops opening. Everyone moving forward. Meanwhile, I was trying to stop a company from falling apart. What are our options? We cut expenses. How much? Enough that some employees won't like it. I looked across the office. At the people who trusted me. The people whose jobs depended on this company, no. The accountant was quiet, no. We don't cut people first. Then what? I looked at the city outside. A year ago, I was standing in an empty apartment wondering what I had left. Now I had 37 people depending on me. We find a way. After I hung up, I sat back down. The company had survived losing clients. It had survived bad reputation. But now we faced the one thing every business fears. Running out of money. That afternoon I received an email. A new contract opportunity. The biggest one we had ever seen. The kind of contract that could save the company. Or expose every weakness we had. I opened the attachment. The company name was at the top. *** Ethan Brooks Realty Group. *** I stared at the screen. The man who had taken my wife was now the person standing between my company and failure. The hardest part about running a business isn't making decisions. It's making them when you don't have enough information. When you're scared. When people are waiting for your answer. When everyone looks at you like you know what you're doing. Even when you're still figuring it out yourself. That was where I was. Sitting in my office. Looking at Ethan Brooks Realty Group's contract proposal. The same Ethan who had walked into my house. The same Ethan who Sarah chose over me. Now his company had the power to decide whether mine survived. Life has a strange sense of humor. The contract was massive. 27 commercial properties. Maintenance. Emergency repairs. Building inspections. A 3-year agreement. If we won it, Harper Facility Services would finally have stability. If we lost it, we would have to start making cuts. I read through the proposal again. Then again. Something bothered me. Not the numbers. The requirements. They wanted a company that could respond quickly, reduce costs, prevent major failures. But the way they wrote the proposal, it sounded like they were looking for the cheapest option. That was the mistake everyone made. They thought maintenance was an expense, not an investment. I called a meeting with my team. Carlos walked in carrying a coffee. You look like you haven't slept. I haven't. He put the coffee down. Bad news. Maybe. I placed the proposal on the table. This could save us. Everyone looked at the document. Then I continued. But we can't win this by being cheaper. A technician frowned. Then how do we win? I looked around the room. By showing them we're different. For the next week we changed everything. Instead of sending Ethan's company a basic price quote, we built a complete plan. Not just repairs, a system. Every building would receive monthly inspections. A digital maintenance report. Energy efficiency recommendations. Emergency response tracking. A 5-year repair forecast. Carlos looked at the presentation. This is more than they asked for. I know. Why give them more? I looked at him. Because everyone else is going to give them a number. We're going to give them a reason. The night before the presentation, I stayed at the office until midnight. The city outside was quiet. My team had already gone home. I sat alone reviewing the slides. Then I noticed something. The last slide was blank. I had written everything about the company, numbers, services, plans. But something was missing. The reason. Why did I care so much? Why was I fighting this hard? I thought about Lincoln Ridge. The empty hallways. The broken lockers. The thousands of small problems nobody noticed. I thought about Mr. Bennett. Asterisk, you're not just fixing things. You're taking care of a place. Asterisk, I added one sentence to the final slide. Asterisk, asterisk, buildings don't fail overnight. They fail when nobody pays attention. Asterisk, asterisk, then I closed my laptop. The presentation was held at Ethan Brooks Realty Group headquarters. The building was exactly what I expected. Glass walls. Marble floors. People walking around wearing expensive suits. A completely different world from the school hallways I knew. The receptionist looked at my badge. Harper Facility Services, yes. Conference room 3. I walked inside. There were 6 people waiting. Executives. Property managers. And Ethan. For a second. Neither of us moved. He looked older, not much. But enough. His perfect smile wasn't as confident as I remembered. Michael. Ethan. He stood up and shook my hand. Professional, polite. Like we were strangers. Maybe that was easier. The meeting started. The other executives asked questions. Response times, costs, staffing. Technology. I answered everything. Because I knew the work. Not from a textbook. From 15 years of actually doing it. Then Ethan asked the question I expected. Why should we choose Harper Facility Services? Everyone looked at me. I looked back at them. A year ago, I would have talked about price. About trying to prove myself. Not anymore. Because we understand something most companies forget. What? Buildings are not just concrete and equipment. They are businesses. They are workplaces. People depend on them. If you only fix things after they break, you'll always be paying more. The room was quiet. I continued. Our goal isn't to be the company you call when there's a problem. It's to become the reason problems happen less often. I clicked to the final slide. The sentence appeared. Asterisk, asterisk, buildings don't fail overnight. They fail when nobody pays attention. Asterisk, asterisk, nobody spoke for a moment. Then one of the executives nodded. I like this approach. Another person looked through the proposal again. This is different. Ethan didn't say anything. He just watched me. 2 days later, I got the call. Karen from Ethan's company. We've made our decision. I stood up from my desk. Okay. We're awarding the contract to Harper Facility Services. For a second I didn't react. Then I smiled. Thank you. After we hung up, I walked into the main office. Everyone looked at me. Carlos knew immediately. Did we get it? I nodded. The room exploded. People shouted. Someone hit the table. Someone opened a bottle of soda like it was champagne. 37 employees. 37 people who had been waiting for a reason to believe again. I stood there watching them. A year earlier, I was living alone in a small apartment. Now, I was responsible for a company. That evening I stayed late. Not because I had to. Because I wanted to. I opened my email. The official announcement had already been sent. **** Harper Facility Services secures major commercial partnership. ***, my name was attached. Michael Carter, owner. I stared at it. Then my phone buzzed. A message. From Sarah. ***, congratulations. I saw the news. ***, I didn't reply. Another message came. ***, can we meet? ***, I looked at the screen. The old me would have wanted answers. Wanted her to see what she lost. Wanted her to regret everything. But that version of me was gone. I placed the phone face down. Because I had something more important to think about. The company was finally growing. The future was finally opening. And I had no idea that the biggest challenge was still ahead. Success doesn't arrive the way people imagine. Nobody wakes up one morning and suddenly has everything figured out. Most of the time, it's 100 small victories nobody sees. One client comes back. One problem gets solved. One person starts believing in you again. That's how Harper Facility Services started changing, slowly, quietly. One building at a time. After we won the Ethan Brooks Realty Group contract, everything changed. Not overnight. But enough. The phone started ringing more. Companies that had ignored us months earlier suddenly wanted meetings. People noticed. That was the strange thing about business. When you're struggling, people look away. When you start winning, they want to know your secret. The secret was simple. We listened. That's it. We listened to what clients actually needed. The Ethan contract became our biggest project. 27 buildings. Different locations. Different problems. Different expectations. The first week was chaos. Everyone was running around trying to organize schedules. Carlos stood in my office doorway holding a stack of papers. Tell me you have a plan. I looked at the mess on my desk. I have the beginning of one. He laughed. That's not very comforting. Good plans usually start with admitting what you don't know. He shook his head. That's the most owner answer I've ever heard. I smiled. I'll take that as a compliment. One of the first buildings we inspected was an old office tower downtown. From the outside it looked fine. Clean windows. Nice lobby. Professional appearance. But when I walked into the mechanical room, I knew something was wrong. The HVAC system was struggling. The pipes were older than some of the employees working in that building. I checked the maintenance records. Almost nothing. Just emergency repairs. The building manager followed me. Can you fix it? I looked at him, yes. But I have a question, what? Why did nobody check this before? He shrugged. Previous company only came when something broke. There it was again. The same problem. Waiting until something failed. I spent the next 2 days creating a replacement plan. Not just fixing the current issue. Preventing the next one. When I presented it to the property owner, he looked surprised. This will cost more than a basic repair, yes. Then why would I approve it? I pointed at the numbers. Because the repair you're asking for will happen again. The plan I'm offering prevents it. He studied the document. Then nodded. Nobody has explained it like that before. 3 weeks later, we got our second major contract. Then our third. The company that was almost dead was suddenly struggling to keep up. The same employees who were worried about layoffs were now training new hires. The same office that once felt empty was full of conversations. Full of movement. Full of hope. One Friday afternoon, Carlos walked into my office. Guess what? We passed last year's revenue. I looked up already. He smiled. You realize that's impossible, right? What is? That 6 months ago people thought this company was finished. I leaned back. 6 months ago I thought so too. He laughed. At least you're honest. That weekend I visited Lincoln Ridge High. I hadn't been back since leaving. Walking through those hallways felt strange. Same lockers. Same classrooms. Same smell of floor cleaner. Except this time, I wasn't carrying a mop. Principal Harris saw me near the entrance. Michael, hey. He smiled. Look at you. I laughed. Still me, no. He shook his head. Not exactly. We walked through the hallway together. I heard about your company. News travels fast. Schools are like that. He stopped near the maintenance office. You know what I'm happiest about, what? You didn't become successful because you wanted to prove someone wrong. I didn't answer. Because part of me knew he was right. In the beginning. Maybe I did. Maybe Sarah's words pushed me forward. But somewhere along the way, the reason changed. I wasn't building something to make her regret leaving. I was building something because I finally believed I could. That night I returned to my office. It was almost empty. Everyone had gone home. I opened the latest financial report. For the first time, the numbers looked good. Really good. Revenue was growing. Clients were staying. Employees were happy. I poured myself coffee and looked out the window. The city looked different from this height. Not because the city changed. Because I did. My phone buzzed. A message from Sarah. Asterisk asterisk, I saw you were at Lincoln Ridge today. Asterisk asterisk, I stared at the screen. I hadn't told her. Asterisk asterisk, how did you know? Asterisk asterisk, a minute later she replied. Asterisk asterisk, I was there too. Asterisk asterisk, I frowned. Then another message appeared. Asterisk asterisk, Michael, there's something you need to know. Asterisk asterisk, I waited. 3 dots appeared. Then disappeared. Then appeared again. Finally the message came through. Asterisk asterisk, Ethan and I aren't together anymore. Asterisk asterisk, I read it once. Then again. I didn't feel the satisfaction I thought I would. No excitement. No victory, just nothing. Because a long time ago, I wanted her to regret choosing him. Now that she did, I realized something. I didn't know what I wanted from her anymore. Then my phone rang. Not Sarah. A different number. I answered. Michael Carter. A man's voice responded, Mr. Carter, my name is James Wilson. Your company was recommended to us. Are you available to discuss managing one of the largest commercial buildings in the city? I looked around my office. At the company I almost lost. At the future I never expected, yes. I'd like to hear more. When I hung up, I realized something. The company wasn't trying to survive anymore. It was becoming something bigger. Much bigger. The strange thing about success is, people notice it after the hard part is already over. Nobody saw the nights when I sat alone in my office wondering if payroll would clear. Nobody saw me staring at unpaid invoices. Nobody saw me questioning whether I had made the biggest mistake of my life. They only saw the headlines. The new contracts. The growing company. The owner who somehow turned everything around. But I remembered. I remembered exactly where we started. 6 months after winning the Ethan Brooks Realty Group contract, Harper Facility Services looked like a completely different company. We had grown from 37 employees to 82. Our small office was too crowded. The reception desk was always busy. Phones rang all day. The coffee machine finally broke for good. Everyone celebrated that one. Carlos said, honestly, that thing was the only employee who deserved to be fired. I laughed. Be nice. It lasted longer than some companies. He looked at me. That's actually true. The biggest change wasn't the money. It was the people. Employees who used to keep their heads down started sharing ideas. Technicians weren't just waiting for instructions. They were solving problems. That was what I wanted from the beginning. A company where people cared. Not because they were afraid. Because they believed their work mattered. One afternoon, I walked through the office and heard 2 new employees talking. Is that really the owner? Yeah. He doesn't look like an owner. I smiled. They didn't know I was standing behind them. I cleared my throat. They turned around. Sorry, Mr. Carter. I laughed. Don't be. I've been hearing that my whole life. With growth came new problems. Bigger contracts meant bigger expectations. A small mistake could now cost thousands of dollars. I learned quickly that running a company was different from fixing a building. When you're fixing something broken, you can usually see the problem. Business problems hide. They wait. They appear when you least expect them. That's why I started building systems. Training programs. Quality checks. Leadership meetings. Things I never thought about when I was carrying a mop bucket through empty hallways. One morning, James Wilson came back to our office. The man who had called about the city's largest commercial building. He sat across from my desk. I have to admit something. I smiled. That sounds serious. When we first heard about you, we weren't sure. Why not? He looked at me honestly. Your background. I nodded. I figured. We were looking for someone with a business degree. Someone who had already run companies. He looked around the office. But we made a mistake. What mistake? We thought experience came from titles. He pointed at me. You had experience. You just didn't have the title yet. That sentence stayed with me. Because for years, I thought I was behind. I thought everyone else had something I didn't. Turns out, I just measured myself differently. The Wilson contract became the biggest deal Harper Facility Services had ever signed. A downtown business complex. 40 floors. Hundreds of employees. Millions of dollars in equipment. The kind of project companies fought over. When we won it, I called a company meeting. Everyone gathered around. I held up the contract. We got it. For a second, nobody reacted. Then Carlos shouted. Are you serious? I nodded. The room exploded. People clapped. Someone hit the table. Someone yelled, let's go. I stood there watching them. Not because of the contract. Because every person in that room had once worried about losing their job. Now they were building something together. That night I stayed late again. Old habits. The office was quiet. I opened the financial report. The numbers were almost unbelievable. Revenue had tripled since I took over. The company was now one of the fastest growing facility service providers in the region. I leaned back. 3 years ago, I was cleaning classrooms at night. Now I was signing contracts worth millions. But the funny thing was, I didn't feel like a different person. I still woke up early. Still checked my own coffee. Still fixed small things around my apartment. Money changed a lot of things. It didn't change who I was. Around 10, my assistant knocked on the door. Michael, yeah. There is someone here to see you. I looked at the clock. At 10 at night. She hesitated. She said it's important. I already knew. There was only one woman who would show up at my office without calling. Send her in. A few seconds later. The door opened. Sarah walked inside. She looked different. Not because of her clothes. Because the confidence she used to carry wasn't there anymore. She looked around the office. At the employees' photos. The company awards. The name on the wall. *** Harper Facility Services. *** Then she looked back at me. I didn't know. I stayed quiet. About all of this. I folded my hands. What did you think happened? She looked down. I don't know. The silence between us felt strange. Years ago we could talk for hours, now. We struggled to find a sentence. I heard about the company. Everyone has, no. She shook her head. I mean, I heard about you. I looked at her. What do you need, Sarah? She opened her mouth. Then stopped. For the first time in a long time. She didn't have an answer ready. Finally she whispered, I think I made a mistake. I looked at the woman who once told me I would never be more than a poor janitor. The woman who walked away. The woman standing in my office now. But before I could respond, my phone rang. The number on the screen made Sarah look up. It was the bank. And the news they had was something neither of us expected.